So some Halo Infinite news. 343 has put out a statement in regards to the graphics criticism that many have brought up for Halo Infinite, and they've also announced that multiplayer is going to be free to play, which, regardless of what you think about that, the good news is that it could further point to Microsoft prepping to tear down the online paywall and making multiplayer free. Because if you remember, in my video a couple of weeks ago where I talked about Xbox Live becoming free, one of the arguments made was that Halo Infinite multiplayer was going to be free. And now that part has been confirmed. But first, let's get into what 343 has to say about Halo Infinite's demo and how many felt that the graphics were lacking. Here's what they posted on their site. Questions about graphics and visuals. First, we want to acknowledge that yes, we've heard the feedback coming from parts of the community regarding the visuals in the Halo Infinite campaign demo. While we see and hear far more positive than negative, we do want to share a bit more context. From our perspective, there are two key areas being debated around the community: overall art style and visual fidelity. Based on our learnings from Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Wars 2, along with strong community feedback, we decided to shift back towards the legacy aesthetics and that defined the original trilogy. With Halo Infinite, we're returning to a more classic art style, which was a key message going back to the very first reveal that garnered enthusiastic and positive responses. This translates to a more vibrant palette, cleaner models, and objects with less noise, though it doesn't mean less detail. While we appreciate this may not be everybody's personal preference, we stand by this decision and we are happy to see it resonating with so many fans around the world. So if you don't like the art style, blame the fans because they're the ones that asked for it. Just kidding. Mostly. So the second theme being discussed involves visual fidelity. Negative feedback in this area includes comments around characters and objects appearing flat, simplistic, plastic-like, lighting feeling dull and flat, and object pop-in. We've read your comments and we've seen the homemade examples of retouched content. And yes, we've heard the Digital Foundry assessments. In many ways, we are in agreement here. We do have work to do to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was work in progress from several weeks ago, and with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished. While some of the feedback was expected and speaks to areas already in progress, other aspects of the feedback have brought new opportunities and considerations to light that the team is taking very seriously and working to assess. We don't have firm answers or outcomes to share yet, but the team is working as quickly as possible on plans to address some of this feedback around detail, clarity, and overall fidelity. The team is committed and focused on making sure we have a beautiful world for players to explore when we launch. So, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's nice that they address the issues head on, but it's also a little bit concerning. So, first of all, the talking points that people had that, it just looks rough because it's many months old and, so many things have changed since then. Microsoft just pulled it out of the attic with dust all over it and Phil signed off on it, even though it was forever ago that this was made. That argument completely destroyed. They're telling you that it was weeks old. And we also know that they heavily polished this demo to get it ready for this show. This was also a blog post from 343 saying that it went through a great deal getting it ready to show off. And they admit that watching criticism from places like Digital Foundry and seeing people fix up screenshots in Photoshop made them realize, maybe we need to do better. It shouldn't have taken Digital Foundry and people working in Photoshop to see that. This isn't their first rodeo. You've got a reportedly humongous budget, rumored $500 million at least. You've got a huge amount of devs working on this game, and it took Digital Foundry and Photoshop compilations to say, it needs a little work. And I don't know how much you can realistically expect it to change over the next few months because they've already said that the COVID situation is setting them back. and there's no end for that in sight. And again, the biggest issue is that this is Xbox's #1 IP. This is like their mascot. This is the face of Xbox, and it's launching on the world's most powerful console that they have beat to death as far as that phrasing goes. And according to Digital Foundry, this is their words, not mine, they say that there are open world games from 2013 that looked better than Halo Infinite did in its current shape. And again, I mean, I don't even really think it would be that big of a deal if it just weren't for Microsoft constantly talking about power, and that's the hill that they decided to stand on. So of course, people are going to go in and extra scrutinize their games just because they're claiming that it's supposed to blow the competition away. To me personally, gameplay matters a lot more, and so I'm still going to play it. I'll still try it out, but I'm just explaining to you the situation and why the world works the way that it does. These are just the facts. Microsoft claims they got the best system, that the games are going to look the best on their system, so people are going to scrutinize their games more. And I know people are saying that it should be delayed, but I think that would be hard for them to do considering it's going to be their biggest launch title. And I mean, is there anything else even coming out at launch? I don't even know of any other major games, at least from Xbox, that would be coming out at launch. Now, granted, you know, that didn't stop them from launching the Xbox One X with really nothing to show on it except for third parties, so who knows? Moving on to some better news, at least concerning the frames. Halo Infinite confirmed to have a mode that supports 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X, which is cool. I mean, I imagine the esports crowd is going to be extremely happy for that. But we also got confirmation that the game is going free to play. And as I mentioned in the intro, you know, a video that I did a couple of weeks ago, which I'll link down below, Jeff Grubb, who is a journalist, he's an insider, has a pretty good track record, said on the Crossfire podcast that Xbox Live Gold was going away and multiplayer was going to be free. And one of the reasons for this is that he claimed that Halo Infinite multiplayer was going to be free. That's no longer a rumor. You know, it was a rumor at that point when I made the video. It's no longer a rumor. It's a fact now. So if we've got that piece of the puzzle, all we need is the other piece of the puzzle to land. And again, that would be great if it does. At the very least, I believe they're going to have to make free to play free, because how are you going to brag about, you know, having Halo Infinite as free on your system and you're still paying to access it? But the best thing they could do is definitely tear down the paywall entirely. But what about Halo Infinite, you know, going free? Is that going to hurt it, help it? I mean, who knows? You know, there's a ton of free games that you play and you walk away from saying, you know what? I got exactly what I paid for, you know? It was trash and it was infested with microtransactions. I don't think Halo Infinite's going to be trash. And of course, you've got the other side of that coin, which is games that are doing great with this model, like Fortnite, Call of Duty, etc. So I think there's definitely a chance that they could nail it. It's clear, though, that Halo Infinite's going to have microtransactions. We've seen people say, oh no, Halo has said that there's not going to be any microtransactions, which is just simply not the case. What they have said is that there's not going to be any real money loot boxes, which everybody is terrified right now of loot boxes, with governments going around, you know, cracking down on them. So of course it's not going to have real world money loot boxes, but I would be willing to bet you a cosmetic you're gonna have microtransactions in the game. And in fact, there's been reports of this for a long time now. It's a game as a service, and this is the start of a 10-year plan. So one thing it will allow them to do, of course, is have a ton of people try out Halo Infinite. And we know Microsoft loves to talk about numbers of people who have, you know, killed a grunt or something. And so with it being free, there's going to be plenty of numbers for them to brag about. So it's smart on their end. It also means that there's going to be plenty of people trying out different game modes, and the playlists are going to be filled up, which is also a good thing for gamers, hopefully. So are you happy to hear Halo is going free to play, or are you concerned that it's going in the direction of a games as a service? And do you feel better about 343's statement about the demo graphics, or are you a little more concerned about it? Post below. That does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn.